Hi, my name is Yol, and today I'm going to be walking you through the PerfectXL highlighter. For those of you that are looking for practical reasons to use the tool or use cases, maybe the use cases portion on our website would be a better fit, because this is going to be quite a practical run through of all of the different functionality and possibilities of the PerfectXL highlighter. As you can see, I've already got Excel booted up. I'm ready to go. I've got the PerfectXL add-in selected, and I can see here that there's a couple of different tools. We talk about the Explore tool, the Risk Finder tool, and the Compare tool in other videos, but today we're going to be focusing very specifically on that highlighter pane. Easiest way to start is just to go ahead and click Open Highlighter. That's going to open up that pane for me, and I'm instantly confronted with a choice. There's a couple of different modes here. These are different ways that we're going to color cells to get some insight into what exactly is going on. I'm just going to go ahead and walk through it step by step. So we'll start off with this formulas and data overview. Here I get the option to select exactly what I want to highlight and which colors I want to give it. So for example, if I wanted to make formula cells, let's say green, that's fine. Let's make it a little bit darker. Single references, I'll leave them on light blue, and I'll go ahead and select data cells as well. I'm going to go ahead and make those yellow. Sounds good. I've got some options down here as well. I could click highlight right away. It'll just go ahead and boot me up, but I've got a couple of options. I could select a custom highlight range. This will allow me to highlight just a subset of the worksheet. This is relevant for larger worksheets when you've got lots of different cells, like maybe millions of rows, and you just want to highlight a few of them. It'll just cost a little bit less from a performance perspective. For right now, I'm just going to take the whole sheet. I can hide the existing formatting. That means things like this blue table design and things like that will disappear as my colors appear. This is not going to throw away my formatting by any means, but it'll just briefly hide it so I can more clearly see what the highlighter is highlighting. And I can show a list of all highlighted cells. I'm going to go ahead and do that to show you what that looks like. Anyway, we're ready for our first highlight. Really exciting. Let's go ahead and click on highlight. What happens then is colors will be given to certain cells to give me a little bit more context as to what is in those cells. So for example, I now have in dark green any formula cells. Light blue, I've got any single references. So this is a direct reference to a different cell somewhere in the workbook. And in yellow, I've got any data cells. Let's have a look at a formula cell. It's a date value, a direct reference. This is just a direct reference to sales B26. Whatever's in there is coming into this cell as well. And then a value. Well, this value is in a bit of a weird spot because it's in a grouping of different single references, so this might also already be an area of concern. That's the formulas in data mode. Let's just quickly look at that list of highlighted cells. We can see everything that's been highlighted here. Let's say something is a little bit out of range and we still want to see what's going on. I don't know, A50, yeah, that's a couple of data cells over here that were not in view when I originally highlighted. I'm going to show how important that feature can be at some other modes slightly later on in this video. But let us move on to the next mode. I'm just simply going to select the drop down here and I can go to the next one. So I'm going to go ahead and click consistent formulas. I hit highlight, and what happens now is that each unique formula on my worksheet, so that's an R1, C1 formula for the technical among us, will be given a unique color. So I can see here that this whole formula, this whole block is one unique formula, this whole row is one unique formula. But here, for example, I can see there's a formula that runs across to column H, but in column I, we've got a slightly different formula. We see in column H, there's just two variables being minused from one another, subtracted from one another, and in this next column, I can see that it's also adding on this I21 cell in this case. Really helpful for spotting some of those inconsistencies and potential mistakes from that perspective. Let's move on quickly to references. What this is going to show me is where a cell is referencing. So blue cells reference other worksheets, so it's referencing a different tab in my model. Red cells are referencing an external workbook. I can see over here, there is a reference to some kind of separate file. There's a My Company file on my OneDrive that's currently being used. Green cells are references within this worksheet. So something like this is apparently referencing cells that I can see in front of me are on this worksheet indeed. And orange cells would be something like 1 plus 1 in a cell. It's technically a formula, but it doesn't contain any references. Let's go ahead and move on to the next mode. We've got input and output. Again, I'm going to go ahead and select this unused data as well because I want to see any data that's not currently being referenced. Go ahead and hit highlight. What formula input means is that the cell is being used somewhere. What the yellow cells are, this formula input and output, means that there's a reference sort of outgoing and ingoing, so it's being used somewhere and it itself is using something else as well. It's a middle piece in the equation, and any light blue colored cells, in this case, the formula outputs, are not being referenced anywhere else in the model. Interesting. I can see that, at least in view here, there's no unused data. If I scroll a little bit to the left, I will see that things like these headers, these overviews, these sort of column headings are often unused, and that's usually okay. Let's go ahead and move on to the next mode. Cell values. If I go ahead and hit highlight, I'll see any number cells. Text cells should be over here. Yep, that looks good. I've got date and time cells, and I will also highlight any error cells. In this case, I don't see any in front of me, but if I scroll through this list of highlighted cells really quick, I can see that, oh, there are some error cells a little lower down in the sheet. If I go ahead and click on one of those, I'll jump directly to the cell, and in that way I can quickly navigate to any Excel error cells. So that's the ones with a hashtag, like the hash ref or a divided by 0 or a hash NA. Let's quickly moving on to the next mode. We've got number formats. This is purely going to show you how the cells are formatted. This can sometimes be interesting if you've got a text cell that's formatted as a number or a number cell that might be formatted as a text. In most cases, it's purely a formatting question. I'm going to go over to the Home tab, and then you can see indeed that these cells are formatted as accounting. In this dropdown, you can see all the different potential formats, and that will match exactly which formats are getting a highlight here. Let's go over to unlocked cells. This is a bit of a hidden feature in Excel, but if you go ahead and lock a worksheet, you can make certain cells unlocked, so even on a locked worksheet, they can be modified. So it looks like these cells over here, which look to be just data cells, maybe it's something that someone's supposed to be input while they're not supposed to modify the formulas. Could be okay, but it's good to know which cells are unlocked, because even if you go ahead and protect this sheet, those cells can still be edited. Moving on to the next mode, we've got special cells. Special cells could be anything. There are a bunch of different things that you can see here. Any cells impacted by conditional formatting, for example. Let's go ahead and hit highlight again. I can see that a bunch of cells are impacted by this conditional formatting rule. That might not be as relevant for me in this current check, so I'm going to go ahead and actually uncheck the conditional formatting, and then we see that there's much less going on. I can see on the left here a little bit of yellow peeking out. Let's take a look at that. This looks to be some merged cells. A lot of Excel users don't love these merged cells, so it's good to be able to spot those quickly. And down here, I can see also that there's been some invisible values found. If I go ahead and click there, I can see that indeed there are some invisible values here. They're made visible now by the highlighter, but if I go ahead and hit clear here, so I'm going to remove the highlighting, you'll see that indeed in Excel itself, these numbers are not spottable. In most cases, that's because the foreground color, so the text color of the cell, is the same as the background color. We can check that really quick. We can see in this drop down that probably these cells were made white. If I go ahead and make them black, then these cells become visible. And if I hit highlight, these are no longer going to pop up. Good to know. And finally, we've got custom highlights. This is essentially the Control F function of Excel itself, but you can go ahead and fill in anything that you might want. So if I wanted to highlight every formula on my sheet that contains sum, I go ahead and hit highlight, and I'll see in this kind of pink color a bunch of different formulas that contain sum. In that way you could look for pretty much anything, and it gives you a little bit of coloring to help you. And don't worry, at the end of your process you can remove all of these highlights. They're just used for that process of understanding what's going on. Then you can go ahead and hit clear, or you can close out of the highlighter. All your highlights will be gone, and you'll be back to the original state that you started in. That's been a walkthrough of the PerfectXL highlighter. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out via our website. Thank you so much for watching.